Hey everybody, welcome to PC Perspective. I am Ryan Shrout, joined by
Tom Peterson
from NVIDIA. We're going here today. We're going to do a live review, a presentation, a discussion. We're going to take a lot of your questions about a new product that you guys just announced and released today, the GeForce GTX 660 Ti. You like to call it the 660 Ti.
I don't care. I call it Ti. I call it Ti. Whatever anybody wants. I think it's just a fantastic part. So,
well, that's your job.
Well, I don't actually think every part we've ever done forever has always been a fantastic part, but there are times when, you make the perfect card with the perfect performance, with the perfect price, and that's the 660 Ti.
So if you're watching this live, make sure you're paying attention. We're going to give away, we're demoing the EVGA superclocked version of the 660 Ti right here. We're going to be giving it away towards the end of the event, towards the end of the show. So make sure you pay attention. I don't know how we want to distribute our word.
There's a secret word that was put on the NVIDIA Facebook page.
Right, which is facebook.com/NVIDIA GeForce.
Yep, and it's also on my personal page, but did you put it on your link?
It is not on our page.
Okay.
So I was encouraging them to have to watch.
Okay, yeah, watch. Oh, so we should maybe tell them now?
Yeah, so the secret word is going to be the shader count for this part.
Exactly.
Right, which if you don't know, you should know that.
It's in the chat.
Or you can also go to PCPro.com and read our review.
Yeah.
And it's right there on the first page.
And also we should mention right off the bat that if you're not watching this live and you're watching it recorded, you're not going to be able to win.
Yeah, it's too late then.
Yeah.
Pasting the secret word in the chat room is not how you win, by the way.
Not helping.
It is not going to help anything. You're going to have to send an email to a certain address, and I will give you that address a little bit later.
And if you send it early, it doesn't count. So.
Right. Well, they don't know the address to send it to, I hope. So. So yeah, you guys can stop pasting on the channel. So let's go ahead and talk about the product.
Okay.
This is the technically the fourth graphics card to be released with the Kepler architecture. 680, 690, 670.
Yes.
Right. So 680 and 690 using the same GPU, but a very different card. So we'll go through some of the specs.
Well, 680, 690, 670, all using the same GPU.
Yeah, all using. That's what I pointed this out in our article, that it was interesting. I don't know if I can remember a GPU that has been so versatile so quickly. GK104 is in a part that now ranges from $299 up to $999.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
And we'll talk about the performance deltas and all that kind of stuff between all the products. But it's interesting to see an architecture that works at so many different levels. Obviously, the 690 is two of them, so it's not exactly that.
Yeah.
But even if we look at the single GPU offerings, you have a $499, a $399, and a $299 part, all using essentially the same die.
Yeah.
With a little bit of tweaking here and there.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's kind of part of our strategy. You want to be able to build one piece of silicon that you can leverage over a lot of different designs, and the way you do, and by doing that, we can be more efficient and more effective. We can keep everybody's costs down. So by using the same design, it allows us to be more responsive to people and the price points they want and the performances that they want.
I saw somebody in the chat room ask, yes, we are going to make this a giveaway worldwide, so I'll pay for shipping to whatever country you happen to live in.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I'll buy lunch.
All right. Now we're all
even. Now we're all even.
Okay. So let's go ahead and jump into what you kind of want to give us an overview of the product and kind of talk about its placement in the market and all that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. So the big thing that we're going to talk about today is 660 Ti or Ti, and it's a fantastic part. People have been asking for it because while we launched Kepler first at the high end, we're talking price points of $999 and $349, way higher than the bulk of the market is normally paying. This is the first time Kepler has come down to a price point where a lot of people are going to be looking to buy. And we've got a couple of comments from different people. Kelt, of course, I love it. I frickin' love it, talking about Kepler. Just what the gaming industry needs was GameSpot, and the GTX 680 was simply amazing. So when Kepler came out, everybody recognized it was a fantastic solution. Very cost effective, very great price point. And of course, we brought it in at the top end of the market first, right? 690. And great reviews, but still at a price point that people really would have to strive to get to. So the exciting part is that everybody's been anticipating this. Lots of comments in our forums. Everywhere I go, every event I go to, people are asking for the 660. So at least people know what our numbering scheme means now, right? 690, 680, 670. This is the 660. And it's got a cool new price point and a great new UI, great new chip functions, and it speeds up your gaming a lot. So going from 260, where a lot of gamers are, to 470 is 1.8x. When you go to a 660 Ti, on average, it's around 3.3x of a 260, which is just shy of double a 470.
Yeah, we actually had one of the questions that was presented to us earlier was, hey, I have two GTX 470s and SLI. Is this going to be faster? And the answer is maybe.
Depends
Right?
on the game. Depends
on how well
setting.
the SLI scales. One of the benefits, I'm still a big proponent of, rather than, if you're going to buy GPUs at one time, rather than buy two
little ones, buy
one bigger one,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
in this case, getting the 660 Ti may not be the best performance, may not be better than the 470 in all instances, but to me, you're more likely going to get all of the performance out of your investment
all the time,
with as much as possible, right, out of the single GPU as you would with two.
Exactly, and I think everybody knows that the way SLI works is slightly different from the way a single GPU works. So having one GPU that has lower power, that has better acoustics, it's kind of a no-brainer versus two 470s in SLI.
Yep.
So I'm very excited. The performance is incredible. The price point's great, and I can truly say I'm proud of the part. And the best thing is that it's at a great time. The market for PC gaming has never been more exciting. There's lots of great games coming, and you know, the ecosystem is on a definite upswing. And if you look at the data, this is actually something a lot of people don't know, so I share it to anybody I can. The green bars are actually the trends for revenue on the software side of PC gaming. So you can see in like 2012, PC gaming is generating somewhere around $19 billion of revenue in 2012, and all of console gaming combined is somewhere around 23 billion. So they're getting very, very close.
Right.
And the trends are very, very clear that by 2014, 2015, you know, you'll see more revenue on the PC side than console side.
Is there a breakdown on what constitutes PC gaming software sales? Is it, are we talking about higher end gaming? Are we talking about lower end gaming? You know, does this count Zynga? Does this count stuff like that?
This counts all PC gaming, and the vast majority of the revenue on this is now growing online. So it's not just Zynga, it's more things like World of Tanks, League of Legends. It's the business models where you game online, free to play, and then subscriptions.
So that's one thing that's always been difficult for the PC in terms of even knowing what the sales are. First of all, like Steam doesn't share its sales data. And then you get into games that are free to play with purchase upgrades, right, where you're spending $1 or $5 at a time.
Absolutely.
How does that kind of get rolled in? So
this includes all those
DFC Intelligence is the source of that.
Exactly, and you can actually tell if you look at the graphs for this, it's pretty compelling, and it's a combination of tier 1 game sales, but most of that's now distributed online. Retail sales as a percentage of this is actually relatively small. And that kind of jives with what you see when you go out and you look in the mall. You see a few PC games.
I can't remember the last time I've gone to a retail establishment to buy a PC game.
Yeah, so it's all online, and it's going to be increasingly online.
Yeah.
Okay, very cool. But the cool news is there's a ton of Tier 1 titles coming in 2012. So Call of Duty Black Ops, Far Cry 3, PlanetSide 2. But it's not just the number of titles. They're all adopting the new technology. So you've got most of the Tier 1 titles now are DirectX 11. A lot of them are using our technology like PhysX, 3D Vision. Examples of Borderlands 2 using PhysX all over the place. It's a great example of how we can work together with developers, our DevRel and DevTech teams, to generate something that's truly spectacular to watch. So I do have a little bit of data on Borderlands 2 I wanted to share, but let me talk about Tessellation first, DX11. If you look at his ear here, and I think we're going to post these slides, you can actually see the collars are all kind of rigid, and you know there's definitely geometric problems. With Tessellation, all of that gets smoothed out, so no matter when you zoom in onto different features of Payne's head, you can definitely see you know, smooth curves. And of course, the performance on Max Payne 3 is great with 660 Ti. We're up to 44 frames per second versus 470, which was 29 frames per second.
Now, it looks like it says 19 by 10, DX11 highest settings, that kind of stuff.
Unfortunately, it's cut off. But
it's cut off on here, but they can see it on the stream. So,
and again, on Tessellation, this is showing Secret World, which just came out. The roads, as an example, are normally flat, but with Tessellation, you get the nice bumpy cobblestones, and it's all throughout the game. And Secret World's no exception. Again, on a 660 Ti, you'll see 61 frames per second versus a 470 running at 31 frames per second. And of course, 260 didn't have the DirectX 11 support.
All right.
So this is too hard to see, but let's just say that Secret World was one of the very first games to implement TXAA.
Right.
So if you remember when we launched 680, we talked about TXAA and new algorithms. This is the first game to actually take that inside and make the engine work.
So for the live stream, the issue is here, it's probably difficult to see the differences side by side. We actually, NVIDIA made a video that you can go see. Actually, it's on our YouTube channel. If you go to youtube.com/PCPer, you'll see you can watch it in 1080p, kind of get a better idea of how TXAA works. And the benefit of TXAA is that it presents better image quality, but without super heavy load on the GPU, right?
Exactly.
That's kind of like the benefit of it?
Exactly. The way to think about it is, first, it does very good with motion anti-aliasing.
Okay. And
then the second thing is the performance, the algorithm performance is way better than MSAA. So if you have, say, TXAA turned on, it's got about the same sort of visual quality as like a 8X MSAA. And if you look at that, you're going to see effectively much lower performance impact of the TXAA.
The downside is that it requires implementation at the engine level today.
Exactly. So the downside is it's not in the control panel. You can't just hit a button to turn it on and make it be effective. So you know, it's going to take some time for that technology to move through the ecosystem. But obviously Secret World's there, and you'll see, I think, a bunch more games kind of adopt. It's kind of a no-brainer. It gives you better quality for less performance impact.
Okay.
Yeah, it's really cool. So let's talk about physics in Borderlands. It's incredible. It's all over the place, and you can see things like persistent particles, simulated cross fabric, and dynamic fluids, and it actually makes the game just a lot more fun to play. So I show a few examples here. This is one scene. You can see how there's like a sparking in the middle, but the real effect should actually be a plasma explosion. But obviously, without physics, they don't have the horsepower to model all of those explosions. So I did actually bring a video that I think we can try to show.
Sure, we can.
All right, let's see. And if you can't see it on the stream, apologize, but
again, if you want to see this same video we're going to show here, it's at youtube.com/PCPer as well. If you want to get like the full quality version of it too. So we'll see if this will open up for us here.
Ooh, yeah, it opened. Perfect. And hopefully there's sound coming through, but we'll see. And I'll just let it play, and then I'll talk to it just a little bit. But obviously, we've been working with the guys at Gearbox for quite a while, and I'm excited to see how the technology is kind of moving into the game in a more significant way. So this is actually just starting off. You can see some of the sparks and the particles and all the rest of it. And then you can see a plasma effect and some smoke. All of those are physical effects. It's really, really cool. Coming up in just a second, we do some really good side-by-sides. So you can see here the fluids. On the left is no physics. On the right is with NVIDIA GeForce physics. And you can see all of the fluid effects, the plasma, the sparking, the persistent, and you can actually interact with the fluids that are in the game. Here's another great example. That's without physics. And here's with PhysX turned on. You can see how it sucks in all the particles, creating that fluid, and then you can actually go interact with the fluid. Here's another one that's cloth without having physics. This is cloth with physics. You can see it kind of waving around. You can destroy it. Another great example is the persistent blobby particles over here. This is physics on, and this is physics off. You can see some kind of explosions of the debris, and then you can play with the water. Really, really cool the way the effect actually sucks in the cloth and then blows it out. And again, all of this works because GPU accelerated physics using, long term. We've invested in this for probably now, I'm going to go 5 years, 4 years, 5 years.
Of actual NVIDIA owning? It's close
right
to
in
that.
there, So here's another great example. There's plasma effects. There's a great particle effect. There's smoke. So that's the kind of benefit that you're going to see from NVIDIA PhysX.
Now, as the third party here, we have to point out that there have been many people that have lamented about PhysX.
Yes.
It's kind of it's cool to see when it works well, and it looks like Borderlands 2 is probably the best example that we've
really
actually
cool.
seen so far.
Yeah.
The issue is this something that is it going to require a secondary card? Can you enable this with the 660 Ti and still run top quality settings on that kind of stuff?
No, with the 660 Ti, you can't turn everything all the way up, all the physics effects on, and have great frame rates. So you need to be a little bit more aware, just like any other performance trade-off you make. Now on the higher end cards, sure, you can. Like on a 680, you can turn on all the physics and turn on all the graphics and get a great experience. And it does work with multiple cards. You can have a second card, maybe your older GPU, to run the physics and run the graphics on your new GPU. But to tell you the truth, I haven't gone through all of the variations of performance tuning on different cards yet.
Okay. All right.
But I think it's great, and it's a great example of how our investment in software actually ends up, delivering better experiences on our graphics card. Pretty cool.
Yeah, there will be a lot of people that say, why can't they run this on AMD cards?
Yeah.
Why can't they enable these on their software and see if their processor can handle it and that kind of stuff? And those are valid complaints. Like, they're valid concerns.
Yeah.
From your perspective, though, it's more of NVIDIA paid money for this company. They've invested in it, and they're trying to make it NVIDIA exclusive.
The way to think of it is if NVIDIA developed, because we do develop not just the core routines, but we actually do a lot of the work in the game itself, working with partners. So we would not be able to fund that investment if there is no return. Right? And the way the return comes is through higher GPU sales, hopefully, because our delivered experience is better. So the trade-off is not, hey, NVIDIA, can you do this for free and turn it on everywhere for free? Because the answer to that would be probably no. We can't afford the investment if there's no return. If it's an even playing field for everybody to get exactly the same benefit, then we're disincented to make investments like this. Okay. So on the one hand, it makes perfect sense that people would want to take the technology because it is super cool and run it on everything. But really, nothing's like that. I mean, nobody really complains that the Microsoft drivers don't run in Linux, right? That doesn't, if it doesn't make any sense.
Okay. All right.
All right. So let's talk a little bit about the performance. Here's 260. It runs at about 27 frames per second. GTX 660 runs at 78 frames per second. And again, this is with all of the goodness turned on. And I don't know if you can tell it, but it's medium on the PhysX there. I think. What's it say?
No, it says PhysX High. Actually,
high.
19 by 10 PhysX High, but it doesn't say what the quality settings of the actual the game are.
Good. That's great.
So
That's better than I thought.
there.
That's very good.
So.
The other thing I want to mention is there is a Borderlands 2 bundle that we're doing. Now, I don't know if I think you got briefed on this, right?
Yes.
So with every GTX 660 Ti, there is a bundle with Borderlands 2 when it comes out to go ahead and get that with the card. So we're valuing that at around $60. Depends on what the game actually sells at, but it's clearly an amazing deal. You get the card, get the game. It's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah, it's one of those things where if you're considering two products, one of them ships with a game that you think you're going to want to buy anyway.
Right.
It can make a big difference. We're talking about even if we take this down to $50 level, it's a significant percentage of the card cost. Right,
exactly.
So a $300 card, you're taking 1/6 of the cost.
Not a bad deal.
For the game. So that's pretty cool. And when's it supposed to be available?
I think it's the 12th of September, but I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, the labeling on there is not right, but yeah, okay.
What's the label say?
It says the deal's through June 30th. I guess it's available.
September 21st, it says there.
Okay.
So maybe it's dyslexia again. It might be the 21st.
Okay.
All right, so that's Borderlands 2. It's fantastic. It's a great job on everybody's side, DevRel, DevTech, and of course Gearbox. Looks great. Now, the summary of GTX 660 Ti is that it's a huge leap in performance over Fermi. So compared to 470, you're looking at somewhere between 1.6 and 1.8. It's a great upgrade, and of course, it's got the great acoustics as well. I don't want to spend too much time talking about AMD, and I know you did some reviews that have AMD, so maybe we'll just cut to your data for AMD. Our data shows somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 versus 7870. And pretty close, but still winning versus 7950 between 1.1 and 1.3. I think it depends on how you ran 7950, what game you ran at. So why don't we just cut right over to your thing? All right.
I want to point out on the live stream, I just got an email in from a concerned viewer.
Concerned?
Who says, the subject is 1344, I just had to try. And he sent it to my email address, like my primary email address. He says, I had to try. Maybe this is the wrong one. I'm sorry. And it was the wrong email address. And if you did it early, you were wrong.
Yeah, so both wrong. We're going to tell you where to do it and what to do later in the stream.
Exactly. So, of course, if you're here, you're at PC Perspective. This is our review we posted today of the 660 Ti. You'll notice in front of us, we actually have quite a few different retail cards. We've got the EVGA card that we're running in our testbed here, but then we've got MSI, Galaxy, and Zotac. All of these are overclocked cards, which is great, except for when we did our review, I wanted to test the $299 price point, the reference. So we took, I don't remember which one it was, maybe it's the EVGA or the MSI, and downclocked it. We used Precision X and downclocked it by about 100 megahertz to get the results here to do that. So we're back down to our 915 megahertz base, 980 megahertz boost.
Interesting, but that doesn't work right.
It did, based on what we were seeing in GPU-Z.
Close, right? Yeah. So the trick is, with Precision and actually all the overclocking tools, what you're doing is adjusting the GPU offset.
Yes.
Right? Now, that doesn't really say anything about the average clock.
Correct.
It just talks about sort of the min and max clock. So you may not have actually been experiencing the stock behavior.
It's pretty close.
Might be.
And we were, based on the clocks we saw in precision.
Oh, you saw them how moving around?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
We saw them, and it was pretty close. It wasn't exact, but it was pretty close.
Okay.
So obviously here's a promotion for our live event that we're going on right now. So here's this. What's interesting that maybe I don't think was pointed out specifically yet is that the GPU in the 660 Ti is almost the exact same GPU as the 670. So if we look here, you'll see that one of the SMX units is disabled. That was the case with the 670. But what is unique with the 660 Ti is this memory controller is disabled. So we actually are going from a 256-bit memory controller to a 192-bit memory controller.
So it's a little bit more narrow on the memory.
Right. It still runs at 6 gigahertz. The GDDR5 still GDDR5 memory still runs quickly.
Right.
But the memory bandwidth, the available memory bandwidth, actually cuts down quite a bit by about 35%. It goes from 192 gigabytes per second to 142 gigabytes per second. And it ended up being a little bit more of a performance drop from the 670 to the 660 than I expected, I think, going in.
And did you play with the overclocking on the memory interface?
I did not overclock the memory. We're going to save that for kind of the retail cards because we want to test the coolers and all that kind of stuff, too. But yeah, that would be someplace where you would really want to pay attention if you're buying a 660 Ti is like, hey, if you're going to overclock, look at that memory, because that's the main difference.
Yeah, you'll see a big
default clock
performance
speeds
impact.
are the same as the 670.
I mean, now with the overclocking tools, you can very easily play with the memory clock and kind of see where it is stable or not. And I think on a lot of these cards, you're going to see quite a bit of headroom on that memory overclocking.
And don't forget, 1344 is our secret word, secret number. 1344 stream processor.
Nice.
And we'll tell you what email address to win 660 Ti soon.
That 660 Ti.
So here's our specs. Like I said, the reference clocks are 915 base, 980 boost, 6 gigahertz. Here at 144 gigabytes per second memory bandwidth. And
now, hey, just real quick, do you think everybody knows what base and boost is by this time, right? But
I would assume so.
We'll show a little demo later, make sure it's all very, very clear.
So your GPU is guaranteed to work at 915. More than likely will run at 980.
Yeah, 980 is kind of typical.
Yep.
915 is worst case.
Okay. A little bit lower on the TDP. It goes from 170 to 150. And it's still a 3.5 billion transistor.
It's a big die.
Part.
Actually, it's a pretty good die for 3.5 transistors. It's not that big.
Yeah, well, 3.5 billion transistors, not 3.5 transistors. One of my favorite things about this is the display output configuration. I actually prefer what NVIDIA did versus what AMD did. AMD's 7000 series has 1 DVI, 1 HDMI, and 2 mini DP.
Yeah.
All right, this one has 2 DVI, full-size HDMI, full-size DP. And it kind of cuts down on how much venting area there is on the GPU, but having 2 DVIs has become incredibly useful for us. When we do our surround testing and we do our surround versus Eyefinity testing, we always have to find an extra adapter. We always have a little bit more question because HDMI monitors that are converted from DP to HDMI, they work most of the time, but not 100%. Yeah. And so being able to do 2 DVI and an HDMI is actually great.
I use 2 DVI at my house, so it's just it's that's the monitor that I have, it's the connector that I have, makes it very convenient.
The default configuration is 2 6-pin power connections.
Did anybody
2 of the
do a
boards.
6
So the Galaxy is a 6 and an 8.
Nice, I didn't know that.
And I think that's the only one that does that. So Galaxy actually provided a 6-pin and an 8-pin power connector.
I didn't know that.
And you'll also see on here that 2A and 3 SLI. This EVGA card, the one we're actually going to give away, uses a half-length PCB. You'll see that much like the 670 reference cards, whereas the MSI and Galaxy cards that we got in did not. They used a full-length PCB. There's the bundle there. So let's go ahead and jump into some of the tests. We'll start with Battlefield 3, always a crowd favorite. And so here's what we found. We compared the 660 Ti to the 670, to the 7870 and the 7950. Now the 7870 is $279, so it's about $20 less than the 660 Ti. And the 7950 is about $50 more. It's about $349. Now, to make sure everybody knows, we were using the updated BIOS on our 7950 with boost. Yeah. So this is what's going to be shipping for the next infinitum, right? It'll be starting in a couple of weeks. We wanted to give it the best chance here. And what we'll find is, if we look at our 1680 by 1050 testing, it's fairly low.
Does that BIOS work on all cards?
I think so.
Okay, good.
I think it should.
Okay.
1080p is most popular. You'll see that the 660 Ti is a little bit faster than 7950, significantly faster than the 7870, and about 15 to 20% slower than the 670, kind of as expected.
Makes a lot of sense, yeah.
Now, what tends to happen in my testing through most of our
as
games
you get to really high
is that as we hit 2560 and eventually 5760, you'll see that the 660 Ti starts to maybe fall a little bit behind the 7950. Still is able to stay above the 7870,
right.
But it tends to fall a little bit behind that card. It actually does pretty good here. And that doesn't just happen in Battlefield, it happens in Skyrim, it happens in Dirt.
As you get to higher resolutions, the advantage we have versus 7950 decreases, and sometimes we lose.
And is that because of the memory bandwidth?
I would say it's mostly related to memory bandwidth.
Okay.
And for me, you have to go think about who is this card designed for. You know, the guy that has the 2560 or bigger monitors or surround, probably not going to be delighted with a lower-end graphics card behavior. Right. So
sure.
The truth is that for guys that are running at those resolutions, you're going to tend to see them running with higher performance graphics cards. That's the way I look at it. And there is also a trade-off, of course, between cost and performance for high resolution.
Sure.
If we had optimized this for 25 by 60, it would have been a totally different kind of design.
Would have been a GTX 670.
It would have been a 670.
Here's another game, Batman. We see very similar results. It stays relatively close. You know, it's interesting here. You can see it's just a little bit behind the 7950 with the boost capability built in. We'll just look at one more game. Let's take a look at, let's say, Dirt 3.
Interesting choice.
So here you'll see actually performance stays relatively close, but the 660 Ti and the 670 are very close here, kind of indicating that memory bandwidth not as important in this particular title. Right? And it stays close as we go up down the resolutions too. And again, you'll see at 1080p, it's a little bit faster than the 7950, but at 2560, it's maybe a little bit, tiny bit slower than the 7950. And that's kind of how our results more or less showed up.
A beast of a video card.
A beast of a video card. Reading our comments already? Yeah, nice.
Beast of a video card.
If we look at power consumption, this is one of the areas where Kepler has typically done very well. A new position for NVIDIA to be in, I would say.
It's awesome.
It's
awesome
great
being
to be
the low power guy.
So now, not only, you know, if we look at the performance, or I'm sorry, the power consumption of the 7950, we're up to about 317 watts for the whole system versus 275 for the 660 Ti.
So that's a 40-watt difference.
Yeah, 42 watts difference in our testing between the two parts, and they perform very. In my conclusion, what I kind of said was they perform very closely. A little bit better at 1080p and below, and a little bit worse at 2560 and above. But it's close. I would almost consider it a tie, depending on what screen resolution you're going to look at. Yeah. So and it does use more power than the 7870, but again, the performance kind of shows you why that is the case. Now the temperatures aren't really fair here because
ours is too low.
We're not using reference cards for that.
Oh, I see. So you're using the.
We're using a higher end cooler.
Like
yeah.
You know, the truth is, just one thing to clarify: there are no reference designs. So
even this EVGA one, it kind of looks like it should be a reference.
This is similar to a design we kind of hand out and say, here's what a design looks like. But we're not manufacturing any of the cards. These are not coming from NVIDIA. So these are all manufactured and mostly designed by the individual AICs.
All right. So we did do a little bit of overclocking. Again, we're going to do more of that on when we start to look at all these retail cards. Hopefully this week or before the weekend. And I told you this morning. Originally, when I fired up Precision X and I started to overclock stuff, I was a little bit disappointed because I could only drag that slider to like 80 megahertz before things would start to crash.
Right.
For the offset.
That's the GPU offset.
The GPU offset, right? So I thought, well, I remember getting a lot more than that on 670 and 680, but what I didn't take into account immediately was that this GPU is already overclocked.
Right.
In this case, I believe we were using, I don't remember which vendor we were using, I think we were using the EVGA one. Because the card we were using for testing, the Galaxy was set to 1006 base, already a 91 megahertz offset.
Yeah.
And we were able to add 82 to that. We were actually overclocking the offset by 173 megahertz, which is really high.
I want to try a couple of clarifications just for this, because overclock is kind of like this term that it may or may not work, right? When you overclock something.
Right.
So these cards that are all superclocked are guaranteed by the AIC manufacturer to run at those clocks. So technically they're clocked higher than stock, but still guaranteed. Now what we do after you get them is overclock, where you start raising the GPU boost. And even that is actually kind of different from what overclocking used to be, because we're still enforcing all of the power limits and all of the goodness that comes with GPU boost.
Okay, so it's when we adjust the power target and
Yep.
that kind of stuff that you're considering an overclocking.
Yeah.
And as you can see here in the GPU clock, we actually hit as high as 1215.
Wow, that's pretty good.
So it's actually, even though with our overclock it was set to 1088 with a boost of 1167, it actually was going above that still to 1215.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see that in general. A lot of the cards that you can buy are going to be running at high clock rate right out of the chute, and then with the GPU boost, with the clock offset, you can even take it to the next level.
There you go. So summed up performance and all kind of stuff. I do want to do this. This is something that we weren't able to do
with
the 680 and the 690 live review that we did while you were here, right? And I thought this is something you'd be proud of.
You click on it.
Come
on, baby, yeah!
If you click this link, you'll actually notice that there are...
Props out to our new egg team.
There are
Good job, guys.
cards for sale, $299, $299, $309, $309, $319, and $339.
How many cards
from,
we got? I got like 6 cards, 7 cards?
Oh, we got more than that.
Wow.
PNY, MSI, Zotac, Gigabyte,
Asus,
EVGA, Asus, Galaxy.
Wow.
That's good.
Thank you.
Now,
thank them.
Now, is it going to stay like that?
Oh, yeah.
Are you going to have the same issues that we had with the 680 where collection at the beginning, big gap,
No.
more cards later?
Well, I wouldn't say big gap. I would say there was a gap.
It was a pretty big gap.
There was a gap.
It was a pretty big
There
gap.
was a little gap. And now I don't expect to have a huge gap. I would expect it to be fairly constant, fairly nice ramp. The volume that we've shipped is very, very significant, so I would not expect these things to gap out, as we call it.
Gap out. Okay. All right.
That's the business term for it.
Sure. I'll believe you on that.
No, gapping out is when you get smacked around because you didn't have the right parts.
Gotcha. So that's kind of my summation of the card. In the end, oops.
Super
that
spectacular.
Keyboard doesn't work. In the end, we ended up giving it a gold award. Not like the coveted editor's choice, but here's what it really comes down to: is we're reviewing the reference card. When we start to get into these retail cards,
we may get the coveted gold.
We'll see, because kind of what we're going to do is look at all 4 of these that we have in the house and see which one we like best.
Wow.
The differences are minimal.
Well, I mean, to me, the clock differences are pretty minimal. You will see some being higher and over, but the experience that they generate is pretty different, some of them.
Okay, we'll see. Like the Zotac card, Zotac consistently has the highest clocked cards. I don't know how or why they specifically do that. They stand out in that way. Galaxy has interesting fan designs. MSI has really good coolers. EVGA just has tons of options and features and support and all that kind of stuff for their product.
Really good warranty.
Yeah. So what do you want to jump into next? We want to talk about Boost and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, let's show it. Let's show a few examples. Maybe play a little bit with Boost and maybe
show some game demos.
Questions. Show a quick game demo or two.
So we are accepting questions. The chat room looks like it's flowing a little bit too quickly for me to see what's going on there. Your best bet is if you actually go to PCPro.com and go to the 660 Ti review and leave a comment there. I'll kind of look through that. We also had a thread going on Reddit, the hardware subreddit, where people were leaving questions and kind of voting them up and down and that kind of stuff. I've already collected quite a bit from there, so we should be. I've got 10 good questions.
Awesome. All right, well, let's do this real quick, maybe one game demo, and then a quick recap of how Boost works and the difference between overclocking and superclocked and all that good stuff, and then maybe take a couple questions.
All right.
So to start off with, this is the overclocking tool I'm going to use. It's EVGA's Precision. This is a brand new version. You can say it says GeForce GTX 660 Ti or TI. Very excited about that.
Nice and orangey.
Orange. Yeah, I like the way it looks. I love this, but the card's not orange, so I don't know, guys.
There should be a little bit of orange accent.
Yeah, maybe add an
6
orange little thing up here, and this would make more sense. But I love the way it looks.
Yep.
And it does show you what the specs are for the base and boost on this particular card. These two arrows here are their specs, so it's super clocked, which means that EVGA has been able to either engineer the board differently or find particularly fast and good parts, and they're willing to stand by a spec that's higher than our stock. So I believe, I can't quite make out exactly what that is. That looks like it's around 1,005 or 5,000.
I think it's 1,006. I think they set it at 1,006. It's a very popular frequency.
1,006 is a nice divider, right? Nice
multiplier, exactly. It's not a round number, but it fits something internally.
It's a divider.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And then the boost clock they're speccing is somewhere around, I'm going to go 1051, maybe 1052. Okay, so now everybody knows about the power target, the GPU clock offset. We'll come back to them in a minute. And then the memory clock offset, which I think is going to be even more important to understand and to use for 660 Ti.
I would agree.
Okay, and here's the graph in real time. We're showing power on the top, than the GPU clock, the memory clock, and even the frame rate. Okay,
Cool.
it's very cool. And I have a handy button here that hopefully I'll learn how to switch between the...
There we go.
Yeah, now this is actually two different displays coming off of the same GPU. So this is the primary and the secondary. It's not a different setup of any kind.
So we've got one, essentially we've got one display that will run the game on, the primary display. And the secondary display allows us to keep the EVGA monitoring tool up so that we can switch back and forth
so we
easily.
Can check out what's happening.
Show you what's going on while the game is going on.
Exactly.
Which you can't do with a single monitor.
Exactly. Okay, so I'm just going to start off with 3D Mark 11 just because it's a, it's a fairly standard benchmark, and under advanced, I'm going to
go to extreme.
Go to extreme. Reset to extreme. Perfect. 19 by 10.
We got to run it at 1080.
Graphics test 3 maybe, and let's just see what we get. Now, the reason I'm running this is to kind of show you what the base clock is, because when you run something like 3D Mark 11, depending on the test you run, it should sort of consume a bunch of power such that the clocks are driven down to our guaranteed lowest clock.
Okay.
So this is just kind of to get warmed up, to get a sense of what's going on, to get a little, take a little break, have a little cup of coffee while we launch. And here we are on precision. Oh, I have frame rate enabled. Darn. Hold on, got to turn this off. Because it's not going to get, this might be fun to look at. So this is, it's running 3D Mark 11, and it's running at 28% of the power. That's kind of cool, right? Because the frame cap is on.
Ah, okay. Yeah, we had frame rate target enabled.
So let's turn that off. Sorry. We turn this off. Oh.
You just clipped away from the 3D Mark screen, that's all.
Okay, hold on.
Yep.
Okay, now can I come back over here?
There
we go. All right, turn this off. Say apply. Cool. Come back over here. Awesome. And they figured that out, so close that. Let's try it again. Okay, I'm going back over. Let's let this launch, and then I'll go back over there. So what you're going to see on precision is it should be monitoring everything in real time. I believe that the frames per second does not work on precision because of the way 3D Mark is kind of hooked up, but let's see what we see, right?
Okay.
3D Mark is actually pretty particular about hooking stuff like that. So let's see.
So there's our graphics test 3 loading up. And then once we actually see some 3D
make sure everything comes out, and then we'll
swap over.
Flip over. All right. So there we are. We just started. Now we're going to flip over, and we'll see what we see. All right. So we're at 94% power, and we're at 1137. So actually what's interesting is you can say on this particular card, it's not driving us down to the lowest. We're actually getting a really nice boost running 3D Mark 11.
Okay. Which
is kind of surprising, but that's still pretty cool. So let's get out of here. We're going to go back to the other screen. 1137. That's pretty rocking. EVGA guys. Now let's try Battlefield.
Now Battlefield 3 is kind of known to be...
Ooh.
Here.
Why don't you just tell me?
Nah. You can do it from there.
All right. Good luck.
Are we still logged onto the network too? Okay.
Looks like it.
All right, all right. Nobody tell everybody.
Oh,
no.
Fortunately, it was numbers. In reality, your password is not numbers.
No.
Good. Good, because that would have been devastating.
Nobody break in my Battlefield 3 and see my one save that I have for testing.
That was close to devastating.
It would have been worse if you'd open up Notepad for me.
That would have been awesome. All right, so let's do campaign. Oh. You know what?
I thought we just did this.
No, we had to reinstall.
There you go. Click that. All right. Hit run.
We had to reinstall Win 8. Remember Win? No, not Win 8, but
IE9. Right. Yes. Okay. Now hit continue. There we go. That wasn't so bad.
No.
That's easy going.
Yeah. Origin's not bad.
So let me take a look in the chat room. Let me while this is kind of loading up. Let me ask you one of the questions here that came up.
Go for it.
For the 2 GB frame buffer, how does that work on a 192-bit memory bus?
Interesting. So the way the frame buffer works is that there's mixed density memories. So effectively on a 192-bit bus, you have some that are 512 megabytes, and one that is 1 gigabyte.
So essentially on a 192-bit memory bus, you have 3 64-bit memory controllers.
Exactly.
Right? And the question came about is because, well, with the 670 and the 680, you had 2 gigs, but 4 controllers.
Right,
so
right, right.
each one got 512
Exactly.
megs of memory. With this case, you actually have 512, and 1024.
Exactly.
And when I was talking with some of the people at NVIDIA, they said, yeah, it causes a little bit of a performance penalty.
A little bit.
Somewhere in the order of 2 to 3%. Because memory has to kind of be balanced in a different way.
Right, well, you don't have as much memory bandwidth. Less bits means less data transfer.
Yeah.
So we're having a problem with Origin here. I ate my tube.
Nice. That's
Sorry?
GTI 660 Ti FTW was the message sent to us. Congratulations.
Thank you, Guy. All right, so we just click on this?
Nope, here.
Okay.
There we go.
Syncing cloud
This is why
data.
we never have it online.
You know, once
when we
you go
do our
online, it seems like you've entered a very,
We
very scary
disconnect everything because we don't want to have to deal with that specific issue. One, people messaging me in the middle of it.
Yes.
2, syncing
right, let's
cloud
see what
data. It
happens.
takes a little while to launch, so just leave it
all
as
right,
it is.
So just
It's
be calm,
initializing,
be
so-
calm. No, we're not going to get going.
I don't know what you did.
I don't know. It was working.
Yeah, we were playing it.
All right, so guess what? We're not going to do Battlefield.
All
That's
right.
what we get. You know what? What do you want to pick? Let's go crazy. Let's see what happens with StarCraft.
Okay.
This will be my account.
Perfect. You can use your own password
I
and
will
type
use
it
my
in
password.
incorrectly.
I am a StarCraft player. Now, I recently got reset into a new league. I think we just had season 7?
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
Another question while you type, how has NVIDIA been able to get more product out of TSMC? Is it better yields, bins, more wafer orders? Are you
all of the
pushing everybody out?
well, I don't know what TSMC's, arbitration policy is for,
Okay.
for everybody else. Let me try one more thing. Hold on one sec. I got to remember my password.
Yes, think on the password.
There we go. Yeah, we're getting better yields.
Okay.
We have more bins to consume that yield.
Right.
And just generally as a process matures, we're going to see more and more volume.
Is that part of why there are 4 graphics cards that use the GK104? Is as you have varying yield out of those parts, you've kind of create these SKUs. So were there GPUs that were going to be 670s or 680s that, hey, if we disable one of these memory bus controllers, it actually cuts down on complications, it cuts down on...
It's certainly sometimes we do make GPUs into whatever SKU they want to be, but
Right.
usually that's going down, right?
Oh, okay.
Usually we would, if there's a problem, if there's a mismatch between supply and demand, then you can shift it around a little bit by defeaturing parts that would have been more full-featured.
Right.
But that is rare, right?
Okay.
Because the truth is nobody would want to do that. If you have a high-feature die, it's best to use it for a high-feature SKU, right?
Okay.
So, all right, so to keep things simple, I am just going to pick my only race that I know how to play, Terran, and we'll let him be random, and we're going to start. So what we're going to do...
People in the chat room are asking if you were going to play a ladder match live on the stream.
I could do that another time, but right
Maybe at the end after lunch.
Maybe at the end after go off to lunch. So really, what we're going to do is look at performance. So this guy is just going to run around, and I'm just going to start it and do my little normal build, and I'm going to run this guy down to take a look at my enemy. And while he's doing that, let's see. What we're going to do is flip back to the other screen.
No, you can go back to the game,
okay,
and
go
we'll
back to
use the remote for that. Yeah.
Okay, here we go.
SCV ready.
Okay, and now to the other screen, hopefully. All right, so what we're at is, again, 75%, and we're going 1137. So let's play with
So
this
that's
a little
interesting. So you'll notice in terms of power percentage, we're only using 75% of the power
Right.
headroom, I guess thermal headroom of the GPU.
Yeah, up to 100% is the TDP.
But because the GPU clock is stuck at 1137, that tells you that you have some room left to play with on your card.
You generally have some power headroom for sure.
Yeah.
And since this is not moving around, it kind of says that power is not limiting your current clock, right? So you got to ask yourself what
Settings are limiting
your
current
settings are
clock.
limiting your current clock, right?
Okay.
Now the settings could be set for a lot of different reasons. It could
Sure.
be that that particular GPU does not go faster. Some chips go faster than others.
Sure.
So it might be that this is a hard programmed limit that you won't go faster than.
Okay.
But in this case, I'll bet you that we can actually play with the clock offset a little bit. Let me see if I can get. Yeah, I can. Okay.
So we can
So
do
if we
this while the
actually,
game's running.
let's try it out. So the first thing to do is kind of crank up the power, and I'm going to add maybe let's start with 29. Okay, I'm going to apply it. Okay, now I think if I just switch
We got to go back to the game.
All right, let's see what happens. I'm excited. Of course, we didn't try this ahead of time.
We were going to do it with Battlefield, and sometimes.
All right, we're still running. All right.
All right, now if you use the remote and go back,
All right, here we go. We're going back.
what we should see then
should see
is
higher
higher
clocks.
power and higher clock.
We should. Let's see. Oh, damn it.
Wrong button.
All right, this will be exciting.
So we went up from 1137 to
1166, which is actually kind of close to that.
And our
29.
power's kind of gone up from 73, 74 to like 76, 77.
Wow, so this is working. Shall we keep it going?
Sure.
Shall we keep it going? Well, it is EVGAs. I don't want to blow, I don't want to get
This is
any.
the one we're giving away.
I don't want to get too aggressive. Should we
Fair
take
enough.
a poll?
If people want us to overclock, they'll tell us.
Okay, they'll say more.
I mean,
all right.
they want you to.
All right, we'll go a little bit more. All right, so the way it's, and
They
what's
are.
really super cool about this again is you can do it while you're playing the game, right? So I can just say instead of 29, I'm going to go for
People are saying more MOAR though.
53. Now, I apologize to anybody who may be the manufacturer of this card. None of this was tested ahead of
If
time.
it crashes or something like that.
You know what I'm not going to do? I'm going to back it off a little bit. Right.
No, 50.
50?
Yeah. You can use the arrow keys.
50.
50 exactly.
50. 50.
All right, now hit apply. Let's do it, and then go back into the game, and then switch back.
All right. I don't know. But here we go.
I think people in the chat room really enjoy the random sample overclocking.
All right. Here we go.
All right, they like the.
The excitement. Oh, is that working or not?
No, yeah, it is. Your cursor moved you to a.
Oh,
corner where nothing's
yes.
going on.
Awesome.
Uh-oh. It looks like you're under attack.
All right, we're going to
Oh,
fight
oh.
back. Oh. All right, so we're alive. It's moving.
All right.
All right, so let's go back.
Push your remote back.
Okay. This is exciting, Ryan. I feel a little sweaty. All right, so now we're fluctuating around on power a little bit. We're up to 1187.
Yep.
So creak it up. So what do you think? Have we got enough?
I
think we're good, right? We've demonstrated
You
that
think
it does
so?
overclock.
You think so? I think the line is static, which means that there's way more
There's
space.
more. All right,
There's
so
way
go up
more
a little
space.
50.
I mean, what happens if it crashes? We just reboot it.
Yeah, but I feel awkward because we're demoing a product and it crashes in the middle.
Yeah.
66.
Okay. For 660 Ti. Now keep in mind, this is the same thing I did with my article. 66 megahertz offset doesn't seem like much if you've read about Kepler and all that kind of stuff, but because this was
Superclocked. Exactly. We kind of
higher
superclocked
clock.
it. Right, we're already up to, now these clocks, if you remember Kepler, running at like 1300 or so, that's a lot for Kepler.
Sure.
So we're kind of running into that total limit. Now the other thing I may do, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go here, I'm going to say, let's knock him back down, and let's do this.
You're going to take it to a negative GPU clock
Well, I'm going to
offset?
put him back to 0.
Okay, all right.
Okay, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to run up the memory clock a little bit. So let's
400 megahertz?
Let's do 400 even.
Okay.
Now, if you recall, that's a nice hefty little overclock, but this guy is more memory clock sensitive, right? So this might actually be a better way to overclock it. So let's see how we do. Okay, and now I'm going to switch back to the first screen.
So it says, actually memory clock has already been adjusted.
3402. Oh, sorry.
3402.
Okay, down
is
there
our
with the
new
right
memory
button now.
clock.
All right, here we go. All right, it looks like it's not
Switch back
totally
to the game.
dead.
There we go.
It's run. Ooh, that's nice. That's very nice. How's my team doing over here? Have they attacked yet? Nope. I'm going to send another SCV down there. See how they're looking. Okay, so we're doing good on overclocking. Let's switch back. All right, going back to this guy. All right, and now check this out. So we're up to 245 frames per second, 3402, 1137, 72% power. When it was running actively, let's see, it was back here. It was up to 77, 78% power when we were kind of running the game around. So I think it's actually pretty solid at 400. So let's crank it up to, say, 485.
Sure.
You feel good about it?
Sure.
All right, let's try it. Apply. Ooh, it didn't hang.
All right.
Okay.
I've got it.
Okay.
I've got it.
All right.
I got this under control for you.
All right, thank you, buddy.
All right.
So all I have to do is say go back to the main. All right, we're still in. We're still looking good. How's my SCV doing? He
He's
just
dead.
died. He just
He's
bit it.
dead.
All right, so now we're playing around. My guys are doing well. I really wish I was playing this game, but we'll do it another time. So let's go back to the thing. All right, so now we're at 78, 79%, 257 frames per second. I'll tell you what we're going to do. Let's do both.
Okay.
So crank this up to like 64. I'm going for a crash.
All right. All right. Hit apply.
Whoa. All right, let's
Okay.
go back.
Oh, there we go.
Oh,
back
we're
in the
alive?
game. Still alive.
Get out of town. We're doing well. All right, let's send another SCV down. See what happens to that guy.
You think overclocking is somehow going to change the result of the SCV entering the maze?
Switch back.
Switch back.
Okay. So I feel like we should stop where we are. What we've done is you want to keep going?
No, that's fine.
Nope,
okay. There it is.
Cool. All right, so what we're actually running at here with this guy is we're up to,
I think you alt-tabbed.
Yeah, there we go. So we're at 1200 on the GPU clock, 3488 on the memory clock, and we're running crazy frame rates. So I think you can see that it's easy to overclock it. It gives you a great experience. Why wouldn't you do it? Now, another thing I can show you with this precision. Can we go back to the other screen?
Yeah.
We're going to close. We're going to close Starcraft. I'll take the loss. Oh no. You know what? With the new version of Starcraft, you have to use the menu system to close it. But I'll tell you what I'll do. I can't get to the.
We can't alt F4 that.
I can do this.
It even closes gracefully when you do that.
All right. Yeah. Okay, so let's do one more thing. I want to show my favorite demo of all time. I always show this.
The RIT dribble.
The RIT dribble. The RIT dribble. Let's put it over on the other screen so we can stay with it. The RIT dribble. Here it is. Okay, so what you can see on the RIT dribble is it's a simple little benchmark. Huh?
What's that? Main screen.
Oh, we got to go back to the main screen. All right, can't see it. So let's go back to the other screen.
So we can drag it back. Okay.
All right, we got it, Mike. It's all good. Ladies and gentlemen, we're getting advised to put this on the main screen. So there we go.
It'll look better.
It'll be easier. All right. So coming over to here, I'm going to grab precision and kind of do a happy thing with him. What are you guys talking about?
Nothing. Don't worry about it.
Nothing.
So we'll expand this out, give you a little bit better view of things on this screen.
Okay, and then over here, we got that, and then I'll just pull him down here. So I showed this last time, but I want to make sure people saw it because it's super cool. So right now we're running 520 frames per second. You can see that down here. And we're running at our overclock clock of 1071, and we're only consuming 57% of the power, which is pretty cool, right?
Right.
So if you realize that you're running at 600 frames per second, you might go, well, I don't really want 600 frames per second. You can click the enable on the frame rate control and say, how about if I go to 60 frames a second?
Okay.
And then you just hit apply. Okay, now this works differently from some of the other controls. You have to relaunch the application after you hit apply. But if we look at what we get now, we should get 60 frames a second. And sure enough, we do. Where did that launch to?
It's down here.
It's probably on the wrong screen.
Yeah.
How do I get him to come here? Do I have to go down and drag it?
How about we do this?
Pull it back over?
Just drag it back over.
Right.
I don't know why it would do. Oh,
Whoa,
where'd it
where
go?
is he? He might be underneath the precision or something.
Oh, yeah, it would hide behind that. There you
we
go.
All right, so what's cool is
Funny
you can
ass.
see that we are indeed running 60 frames per second, but check this out. Now we're down to 30 on the power consumption and 550 on the overall GPU clock. So it's giving you, exactly the experience that you would want. You can dial it in. And what's super cool is it's not profile driven. You can make the app bigger or smaller. So in this case, the app's a little bigger. The workload should have increased a little bit, but still we're only at 32% and the clock's still at 550.
This is RIT Dribble not being a game. It's a real-time HDR lighting kind of demonstration.
Yeah.
Where this is useful, though, is, say last night. Say you were here last night.
Unreal.
Say you had a 660 Ti plugged in to this exact system, hypothetically, and you were playing Unreal Tournament 2004 with some friends and some readers of PCPer.com, which we were doing. And we were running at, I think we were only running at, it was kind of locked, but you would run at a super high frame rate. Obviously not necessary. Obviously, you've got a lot more power than you need.
Right.
So we set that to maybe 100 frames per second or something like that. I did not.
Oh, okay.
But we definitely could have and should have. Lowers your power consumption.
And it's more quiet.
Lowers your fan noise, all that kind of stuff.
So save a planet. Save a tree.
Big TF2, Team Fortress 2 update yesterday. Again, not a game that requires a ton of GPU horsepower, but you want to have this kind of horsepower for when you play Borderlands 2 or
Metro,
Crisis 2 or whatever
Skyrim,
it is. Right.
Yeah.
But when you're playing TF2, you can enable this feature and kind of go with that, which is it's really cool.
Plus, super nice.
Adaptive VSync and those things that have been around
Adaptive
since
VSync.
the 680 launch.
Yeah, we're going to make some updates to that. I can't go into the details of it right now, but it's...
You did just tell everybody, though.
There's some stuff that's going to be super cool, but not ready to talk about it.
All right, okay.
Yeah. All right, so that's kind of the opposite of overclocking, right? You can kind of assume that the GPU will go to the right power state automatically. So let's go back to defaults and apply. I don't know, what else you want to do with this? What do you figure?
What else did we set up?
We did overclocking. We've got Heaven. We've got Starcraft, Batman. I haven't tried Batman in a while. Elder Scrolls. I think we covered overclocking. I think that's let's
go through. Want to go through some questions and stuff?
Yeah. Let's do some questions. This will be fun.
Again, if you have questions, go to our review of the 660 Ti. Post them there. I've got a collection of questions that I took mainly from the hardware subreddit.
Okay.
Now, the Reddit community is very direct.
Okay.
They actually instructed me to warn you that they are not typically kind to PR people. You're not a PR person, and that's what I said.
Right? Not that I have anything against PR.
This is a really interesting question. It was the highest voted question.
Awesome.
On there. Do you think?
Now I have not seen these questions before, or I have.
Tom has never seen these questions before.
Okay, and I won't be offended.
And this is right. Anything that was about your personal life, I took out.
You took out all the Yeah.
Do you think GPUs will ever not make up half the cost of building a PC? What is so costly on the board that makes affordable cards about $300? That comes from Bright Boy.
So what's interesting, I think the question's all about GPU price and affordability. And for me, it's interesting to look at the cost of a PC over time. And what's actually happened is, if you look at a PC from, say, 15 years ago, you'll see the cost is sort of evenly distributed amongst the components that are in the chassis. There's chassis costs, there's software costs, there's memory costs, disk drive costs, all the rest of it.
Yeah.
Back about 15 years ago, everybody made a little bit of money. Well, what's actually happened is that margin and the price has compressed.
Okay.
Now, pretty much power supplies are relatively inexpensive, chassis are inexpensive, memory's inexpensive.
Yeah.
Everything is inexpensive except really three things have not become totally free. One is the CPU. And what's interesting is the CPU has remained approximately the same price.
Yes.
Right?
Okay. I agree with that.
The GPU has remained approximately the same price, maybe come down a little bit, and certainly a lot more variation. So depending on your price point sensitivity, you can get a less expensive GPU. The other thing that hasn't really come down in price is Windows. So there's really three components that haven't changed very much over the years, but the PC that you can buy for that has gotten much significantly better. So I would say there's no really good explanation for it beyond the fact that that's where the value lies.
And I think, the question is basically, why does the GPU make up such a significant portion of my system build? And I think it really comes down to, we were playing with some ideas for system build guides and ideas. If you're building a gaming PC, it's the most important part to that gaming experience.
Right.
So, if somebody comes to us and says, "Hey, I have $800. I want to build the best gaming machine I can."
Right.
Do you say, "Well, okay, let's get 16 gigs of overclockable memory,
right,
and like a $300 motherboard?"
Right.
No, you don't do that. You kind of lower the cost of everything,
right,
for the budget that you have. But then you say you get a $300 video card,
right,
which is a significant portion of that $800 budget.
That's true. But the impact it has on your
right,
end experience is very, very significant.
Right. So I would say to this question asker, Bright Boy, that the reason it's such a significant part of building a PC is because it's probably the most important part left. It's definitely the part that's seeing the most change.
Yeah.
Right. From not just NVIDIA, but from AMD. There's still lots of competition there. It's the only area where you get lots of competition still to this day.
That's true.
SSDs are almost commoditized even, and they're fairly new. AMD and Intel, we know how that battle's gone. Motherboards are kind of at a, it's more about features and less about performance.
Right.
So
there's motherboards that take it all the way down to basically cost, right?
Right.
So
$60 H77 motherboards that can run this whole configuration in the exact same way that it is today.
It's fascinating.
So
Thank you for your answer to that. That's much better than mine.
It's a very good question. I really liked it. It was all the way up the top there.
Yeah. It's a great question.
So this is a question I think we already kind of answered. DS Surge and I'm not going to say that username on the air. For the 660 Ti in comparison to its bigger cousin, the 670, was it choice or necessity that led you to disable the memory controller? I.e., was it filling in a gap in the market for NVIDIA, utilizing lower band 104s?
It's primarily a business decision. I mean, if you look at the way GPUs work in the world. There's GPUs that have the highest performance that people are willing to pay more money for because they're the best in the world. And then there's GPU performance and features that are kind of scaled down from there. And if we don't create differentiation between those price points, obviously it causes big problems in the business. So our business model relies on selling all of those. And even though they may be based on the same chip, still having different features and different price points is very, very important. Car manufacturers do it. You know, furniture manufacturers do it. Everybody does it. Beef manufacturers do it. So the cow's the same. I hate to say it, it's not different. But true segmentation is part of the business, and that's what we do.
Okay.
Now, one clarification.
Yeah.
There is partly a physical part of it as well, where occasionally we do detect defects that would cause this chip to not.
One of those memory controllers.
One of those memory controllers dead. But the bigger driver is business.
Okay. Let's see. This was these are more personal questions, not super personal.
Right.
Kind of personal. This is from Retro Evolute, who first of all complimented you guys on the 670 most impressive graphics card he'd ever owned. Did you set that up?
I did not, but thank you. What was his name?
Retro Evolute.
Retro Evolute, okay. Hope you win the card.
So his question is, what graphics cards do we use in our personal machines, and for that matter, what kind of hardware in general are you using?
Should I go first? You want to go
Absolutely.
first? Okay, so I have a pair of 680s in SLI.
Man.
Yeah, I do.
You think this guy works at that
A pair of 680s in SLI. And I have a 3-monitor setup now. So it's very, very cool. I also use a Core i7 something something. I'm not sure the exact model number. It's a 39.
Okay, Sandy Bridge E.
Sandy Bridge E.
That's what these test beds are based
X79,
on.
I actually am using an Intel reference board. So, you know, it didn't go too crazy. I have a dual SSD in striped mode. Corsair SSDs. I know the boys at Corsair, so thank you, John. And I have a bunch of Seagate storage with my photos. I have a backup. And I have water cooling that some of my buddies cooked me up with. So yeah, I have a rockin' rig. And you know what I do? I play Starcraft. And, I play Starcraft in 680 SLI. That's what I do. And I also
So how many frames per second?
You know what?
Like 500?
I turn on my frame rate limiter, and I'm good to go.
All right.
And then I also right now I'm into a game called Anno 2070.
Yep.
That is a really
good game. And it looks great too.
It does.
It's a surprisingly GPU intense title.
And it's mostly a European title, I think. But if you have not tried that game, try that game. It's really fun. And I played through Metro, and so a lot of fun. How about you?
So my answer is more embarrassing than that.
Really?
So here's the thing.
Oh, jeez.
I have these systems.
Here.
We have like 4 of these.
These are not your home systems.
No, these are not my home systems. But this is one of our GPU test beds. We have 2 GPU test beds that are always running here. We have CPU test beds that have the top end Ivy Bridge parts and pretty good graphics cards. Yeah. And like last night when we were playing games, I used this system. Actually, I think Ken used this system or something, and I used the other test bed. So when I want to play a game, I have all these computers sitting around me. So
it's going to be embarrassing.
So having said that, the computer that is here that I sit in front of to type, to write, it only does writing and it only does image editing, is a Q6600 Intel Core 2 Quad.
Wow, back in the day.
Yeah, and it's running an 8800 GTX,
Woo-hoo!
Something like that. So it's an old system.
8800 GT probably.
I don't know. It's a dual slot.
Yeah.
So it might be a
it's
GTX.
a GTX.
Could be a GTX.
Okay.
So that tells you how old school that goes.
Wow.
It does have 8 gigs of memory in it. So that's something. But if I want to play a game, all I do is I swing the chair around behind me, and there's all this other hardware.
Do you have a computer in your home?
I do. That has an AMD 6970 in it.
Wow.
And that has an inhalant parts. That's more up to date in terms of hardware inside. But for me, I have 30-inch monitors on all these test beds. I have the best hardware.
And you're here all day, right?
And I'm here all day.
So if you're going to be here, why not?
I'm here all the time. So that's the question. That's.
I'm not here near as often as you are.
Close. We're getting there.
This is what, my third or fourth?
You've been here a lot.
Yeah.
What's your most anticipated game coming out the rest of this year?
Ooh, well, I'm really excited about Borderlands 2. I think that's going to be.
I think a lot of people are excited.
I think that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
I really do think that's fun. I don't think it's going to happen, but I'm biased. I don't know for sure that it's not going to happen, but StarCraft expansion pack. I think that's next year, right?
I have no idea. It's on Blizzard's schedule, not anybody else's.
Yeah, I really, I'm Blizzard, waiting for that.
I would go with, some people might not like this choice because it's kind of maybe considered a PC or a console port, but the Assassin's Creed games have always been really cool for me, and I love the animation and the gameplay style that you get out of that.
It's Assassin's Creed 3 coming
Assassin's Creed 3 is coming out, and that's the one that takes place during Revolutionary War, and I'm really looking forward to the idea of using a hatchet on people.
Oh, nice.
You know, I think,
silently?
Yeah, creeping through the trees. The video
Nice.
demos look great, and I realize that it's not a PC first title,
Let's see.
but it is here. It's listed. I think
Assassin's
if you go to the
Creed.
next slide, I think it's a DX11 title.
I think it is.
So, I mean, there's a lot of games here.
Far Cry 3?
Far Cry 3 should be
That
cool.
could be good. That could be good.
MechWarrior Online we saw, and that was
You know, we
pretty
had
exciting
an
as well.
event at our place for
I was
MechWarrior
there.
Online. That's right, you were there.
I was
I think
there.
that could be really, really good. I'm looking forward to that.
I just don't have any experience with the MechWarrior games.
I played it when I was a kid. I think it was MechWarrior 2.
Yeah.
And now they're up to like, I don't know what MechWarrior this would be, but I loved it. I loved it.
All right, you ready for a tough question?
Yes.
So before we go any further, don't forget, we're going to give you the email address very soon. We'll probably do it after this question that you'll
Right
email.
after this question, email the secret number.
email the secret number.
Now, don't tell them the secret number anymore. They must have been there
Don't
earlier.
ask anybody in the chat room.
Yeah, don't say the secret
to
number.
win this EVGA 660 Ti. We're going to give it anywhere in the world. We'll ship it.
Yep.
That's how generous my FedEx
He's a
account is.
giver, a giver.
All right, so you ready for this?
Yes.
This was asked several different ways.
Is it going to be offensive?
No.
All right, bring it.
This particular question comes from Buckwheat469, who says, will NVIDIA work with game companies like Valve to create better open source graphics drivers? Is there really a need for these drivers to be closed?
Wow.
Now we're talking about the Linux
port
driver situation.
You know, that is a great question. It comes up a lot, actually.
It does.
There's a lot more people into
A lot
Linux.
of people are asking.
So here's the way I look at it. We do invest a lot of money in Linux, and we do it through our Linux driver. I think most people would agree that our Linux driver is the best Linux driver that's available. It has great features, it has great performance, and it stays very, very current. We're always making releases to our Linux driver. It's not open, okay? And the reason it's not open is because there's stuff in that driver that we don't want to make public, because again, it's this idea that we can't afford to invest in technologies that are partly embedded into our driver if we basically give
Is
everything
this, when you say in the public, you're actually talking about your competition.
we are talking about our competition.
So you're saying there are things in your driver that you don't want AMD to see
or
how you're doing.
other people that, you know, it's almost like Microsoft does not post the source to Windows 7,
Right.
right? We don't post the source to our chips,
Yeah.
and we don't post the source to our driver.
There's obviously, you know, the mentality in that community, though, is everything is open.
Yeah, but again, you don't see Microsoft drivers posted open source, right? You don't see.
Not very often,
You don't.
you do.
I guess it's not a common thing, and certainly it's very rare that a major shipping title would post their source open source, right?
Sure.
I mean, some titles do put their source out years after the game has gone to seed.
Yeah, Carmack
Right?
is famous for
Yeah,
doing
and
that
I think
stuff.
that's great, and we love open source. We do, and it's a major area that we invest in, but we just can't kind of connect how to make our graphics driver open source without nerfing it,
Okay.
right?
I'm not sure that will appease everybody, but
know.
I know it was asked a lot,
Yeah,
so I
it's
wanted
a very fair
to do
question,
there.
and it kind of goes to this heart of, you know, open source means let's let the community take advantage of it, and there is, I believe, a very active, growing open source effort for graphics drivers.
Right.
And I just think that it's hard for us to give that group or other groups like them direct source.
Okay, now we're going to give you, if we go to change to this shot, Ken, this is the graphics card you can win. The EVGA GTX 660 Ti super clocked. And here's how you're going to do it. You're going to take the secret number.
Or word, depending on who
Or
said,
word.
Yeah. It could be a phrase.
It's kind of a word.
It could be a phrase or a number.
And you're going to email it to contest@pcper.com right now. Do it right now. And we've already discussed how we're going to pick the winner,
How are we going to pick the winner?
but I don't want to say it yet. Do I
Okay.
want to say it yet?
Okay, no.
So everybody send your email to contest@pcper.com right now.
Yep.
And as it shows up in our inbox, we will go through and we'll pick out the winner in just a little bit.
Right.
As we go through a couple of more
Excellent.
questions.
Let's take another question. So send it now.
So this one comes from short comments.
Oh, great.
How do I get a free sample?
So it's very difficult to get a free sample because the whole business model kind of falls apart if we do a lot of that. But usually working with our ASC partners, we don't. NVIDIA does not. I'm sorry. NVIDIA does not directly sample a lot of free GPUs. We work with our partners, and they build our community. So free samples, if you're a modder or if you're just a gamer and you want a free sample, it's harder. But if you're doing mods and things like that, it's easiest to connect with one of our EIC partners, EVGA, MSI, Gigabyte, Zotac, all those guys. Much more easy for them to scale that up because, of course, we don't make cards.
Right.
Yeah.
Another way would be to enter this contest.
Another way to get a free sample would be to enter this contest.
Send that email to contest@pcper.com.
Contest
for the secret code. With the secret code.
It's got to
have the secret code.
Secret code somewhere in there. I mean, we should have said in the title, but you know what?
It doesn't matter.
Anyway.
I'll read the email. So, okay.
By the way, if you send an entry, you can put other text in there if you wanted to, say anything.
Give us your comments, your feedback on what you thought about the event. Chances are all those people have already
We should have done that. Damn.
Yeah.
Next time.
Got to think ahead. Here's another question from WorkWork3. It says, why do reviews not regularly use benchmarks that are less favorable to the card? For example, with AA or on games with an ATI bias, etc., and against cards that have not been tested with newer drivers to allow a fair comparison.
I'm sorry, say that one more time.
So he's asking, why do reviews not regularly use benchmarks that are less favorable to the card? I think this question is probably more
but I don't quite get the question.
So I think they're asking, why don't you pick the absolute worst case for each card and pin that on them?
I see.
And I would say the answer is...
it's not representative.
Well, the benchmarks that we've selected that we showed you today were preset. In our case, several months ago.
You do them all the time.
And we run them all the time. And what we do is that allows us to compare results that we had run last month or whatever, it allows people to be repeatable so other people can do it as well. But also, we want it to be fair. We want it to be representative of the market in general, not necessarily how can I make this NVIDIA card or this AMD card look as bad as possible. We also don't want to say, let's pick all the NVIDIA games that NVIDIA does great in, or let's pick all the games that AMD does great in. So what we do is, internally, we have discussions all the time about, is it time to get rid of a game? We look at what kind of genres they represent, what kind of game technologies they represent. Does it have FXAA? Does it require driver-based AA? And those types of things. And we try to get a kind of an even grouping of that.
Right, and it changes.
And it changes over time. It doesn't change super frequently because we want to keep it static for as
long
long a period of time.
You want your database to be comparable.
Right, and every time we change our entire test suite, we start over from scratch.
Right.
And the people, us that do all the graphic card testing don't like that. We start everything over from scratch.
Yeah.
But like for this most recent one, we added 5760 by 1080 testing, so we had a separate station set up for 3 panels. We can do surround, and we can do 3D vision and all that kind of stuff too. So it's a
judgment call.
It's a judgment call on how we decide is best provide accurate information to our readers.
We do something similar. I don't know if you want to hear about us.
Sure.
But we actually have a performance lab, and we have a lot of people working on performance all the time. But the question is, what do they tune to? What performance should we run? And you can't have 10,000 titles. I mean, as you're probably aware, something like 200 titles, 200 new titles come every quarter, right? If you just look at Steam, the introduction date of these titles is amazing. So we can't obviously benchmark everything, but we go through the same process, picking around 100 titles, and 100 titles across about 8 or 9 or 10 different modes with 5 or 6 different graphic options. That's a huge matrix. And we have a huge testing lab all over the world, Moscow, here in the US, that runs these on a semi-daily basis. So the selection of what goes in and what comes out is a hugely important decision. And we do exactly the same metric. We like things to stay the same because we can compare, how are we doing, getting better, getting worse. But we actually need to rotate in the most important new titles as well.
Let's do, I think we have our winner, but I'm going to go to another question. I'm going to tease that. Are there any plans for a GTX 685 or other with full or nearly full double precision performance?
Wow. Excellent question. I cannot comment on that.
Can't tell us anything?
No, we don't like to talk about unreleased products. So that's an excellent question that I cannot talk about, or that I will not talk about. I probably could talk about it. But
his kind of follow-up was, because he kind of assumed that this would be the answer, is when we were creating the new architecture, why was Kepler released to the consumer market with less double precision performance
Fermi.
than Fermi.
Well, the truth of it is that consumer market in general does not need double precision floating point.
Okay.
Right, and so because of that, it's a smart decision to actually build a part that's optimized for that exact market. If you remember, Fermi was kind of built first for workstation, right? It was built more for quadro.
Yes, it was released first as a professional level part.
Right, that's not the case with Kepler. So obviously, it's clear that we learned a lot when we did Fermi. You know, there's a lot of extra stuff in there that didn't really apply directly to consumers. And I think we paid a price for that, and we learned from that. So what Kepler is exactly what the part needs to be. The Kepler 104 is exactly what that part needs to be to kick ass for gaming. Right? It is not to do folding on, really.
It's interesting because I remember when Fermi first came out, it was the 400s, right? And I remember writing about the architecture and talking about its benefits. And what we got from the gaming community was NVIDIA left us behind.
Exactly.
They turned their back on the gaming market, and they built this card for professionals. And because of that, it ran hot, and it ran...
It was too big.
Too big.
It was less performance than it could have otherwise had.
Right. It wasn't nearly as efficient. And the 580 kind of tweaked a little bit, but not a whole lot.
Right.
And this time, it's very obvious that while I think we don't know a whole lot about. I guess they talked about 110.
We did
at GTC.
Yeah. So there is a 110 coming.
So we know that you guys actually built a chip for both.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that is the benefit here. Now, obviously, that means there are some people that
So let's
that don't
clarify.
think it.
We built an architecture that works great for both.
Okay.
But the architecture can be, kind of adjusted with the specific chip that you build. And so that's exactly what 104 is. If you look at what is in GK104, which is the same chip in 690, 680, 670, and now 660 Ti, it's exactly what you need to be the best power performance for gaming.
Okay. Let's see. We already talked about the memory bus implications. We had another question from that. Here's another question about when NVIDIA is going to release a card between GK104 and GK107.
That's another question that I can't answer, but I got to tell you that that is just an unbelievably sweet spot to be.
He kind of this is Tuna Fish 2 from the Reddit questions. He comments, very astutely, the difference in the transistor budget is extreme, and one would think that there would be a market for something in between.
There might be. There might be. And you know what? If we were to make a part like that, it would be unbelievable.
So should I wait?
No,
oh,
not at all.
I should buy this.
So this is going to be better performance, right? And this is actually an awesome design. So I love this part. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, there's a whole stack. And if you look at what we did with Fermi, if you look at what we did with Tesla, the product stack's going to get filled out.
All right. Before we answer who won, I wanted to take a quick second here to point out, so we've been talking about this EVGA model that we're giving away. We did have a couple of other SKUs here if we switch to this camera. This is a Galaxy GC edition.
Nice.
This is just actually, you can see it's a full-size PCB, so it's a little bit longer length. It has these interesting holes in the PCB, which are interesting.
Is that for airflow?
I think so.
Cooling?
It's got a great cooler on it. It's got the same kind of connectivity options. This one comes overclocked. It's also the only one we got that came with a 6-pin and an 8-pin power connector. We had this MSI model, which is its power edition. It's the heaviest of all the cards. It has kind of the densest cooler, which is good. I know Josh is a big fan of the MSI coolers that they have there. Same design, full-length PCB, that kind of stuff.
That's nice.
And then we had this Zotac Amp edition. It obviously uses the shorter length PCB, two 6-pin connectors. Zotac is known to have like the highest. They tend to put out higher clock speeds. Of the 4 I got in so far, this is the highest clocked version. I think it was like, I don't know, 1060 or something base, right? So that's pretty significant. And they have this actually kind of matches that software because of the orange. Don't tell anybody, but
it does. It does. It's kind of cool. Amp. Yeah, so one thing I want to say I'm excited about is this whole boost thing is really working out. People are doing what we would hope, which is they're learning more and more about it.
There was some pushback at the beginning.
There was.
There were a lot of people that maybe didn't like it. They didn't like the idea of having the variable clock speed. But I think it's worked out fairly well. And I think the fact that AMD has kind of adopted the same ideas, a little bit different implementation, but they obviously see the benefit
Yeah.
to not restricting yourself to a fixed maximum clock.
Yeah.
So
You know, I haven't looked at their stuff very closely yet. I'm waiting on a part. I don't know if there's any available in channel yet, but as soon as there are, I'll buy one.
oh, geez. All right, well, we picked our winner. Okay, now here's the way we picked the winner. Everybody sent in emails to contest@pcper.com. If you didn't send an email, don't bother now. The contest is over.
The door.
And we were originally trying to figure out how to pick. We were going to go to random.org or something like that. But rather, instead, what we did, actually, I think it was my suggestion that we pick the 660th email.
Yes.
I don't know how long it would take to get 660 emails
It'd take a little longer than we want.
So instead, we went with the 66th.
66th email.
And the 66th email comes from George Atchison.
George!
Don't yell.
Sorry,
Your microphone's
George.
there.
George.
George Atchison correctly answered 1344. He will be sent
this card.
that specific
in
card.
that box. Now,
with this
George, I want to
box.
apologize. This came with me from Santa Clara, so there's a little bit of ding on it, but trust me, you're going to love it. It's a great board, great card, and you get all the EVGA service. So if you have any problems, they'll take care of you.
All right, and George, I am going to CC you. I'm going to send you an email right now asking for that back for your information so we can make sure.
Yeah. And so you'll know.
All
You
that
got
kind
a,
of stuff.
George, you also got a note directly from the Ryan Shrout.
And Tom Peterson. I don't know if that's worth anything to you guys. So I wanted to. We're gonna wrap up
All right,
the
wrap up.
thing
Do you have a
here.
cool swirly graphic you're gonna do?
No,
Or that's all in post.
Yeah. Oh yeah. We'll totally
Okay.
do that in post, guys. Tom, thank you again for
good
coming
deal.
out.
Yeah.
I know it's travel and a hassle to do it.
No, I'm happy to do it.
And there's just tons of stuff to do in Florence, Kentucky.
I love it in Florence, Kentucky.
It's nice out here. I tell you, I was in Austin for 3 months. That worked out pretty well.
Yeah.
Still nothing like being home where all your facilities are and we have access to all this stuff.
And it's a beautiful country. It really is.
Well, it's a
Beautiful out here.
state.
Well, it's a beautiful country.
Oh,
meaning It's a
okay.
beautiful country here.
All right.
Yeah, and the other thing I'd like to say is it's not actually, Cincinnati's airport is not in Ohio. What's up with that?
A common misconception.
Yeah.
The airport code is CVG, which stands for Covington, which is a city in
It's not,
Kentucky.
it's not, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody who tuned
hugs.
into our live stream.
Come
Don't break the system.
on. Good to see you, buddy.
All right. Thank you guys for tuning in. If we do these events, we're going to do several more of them over the next handful of weeks, actually, for different products. So stay tuned for that.
Who knows? Maybe we'll be back.
Maybe Tom will be back.
Maybe.
PCPer.com is the website. PCPer.com/live is the URL for this. It also has like a schedule of our most recent upcoming events. And please check out our review, our written review of the 660 Ti, and leave us some comments in there what you think and what you thought about this video. And if you are just coming in at the end of the video and you kind of want to see the presentation, we will be posting it on our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/PCPer, probably later this afternoon and this evening once we get it torn off that machine and edited. So thank you guys.
Hi to Tracy. I hope I see you.
Thanks for letting him come out. Well,
Yeah,
she
thanks
probably,
for letting
she's
me
probably
come
not
out
watching
again.
if she's camping, right?
She's on her way to camp, so I don't know if
Okay.
if she hung out and waited. Then thanks, and I'll see you in a little bit.
Thank you to everybody in the chat room for hanging out, and everybody for helping to promote the event. It was
Awesome.
good.
All right, buddy.
Cool.
See you.
Thanks.
Thanks, guys.